but more of my story. So after then, really starting to study Bitcoin and then meeting so many friends, plebs to influencers on Twitter who were so gracious with knowledge. I mean, that is something I loved about Bitcoiners is I was active in altcoins. I mean, I thought I was an crypto savant because for a while in 21, there was nothing you could throw your money at that wasn't going up until it wasn't anymore. But always in the altcoin crypto space, I feel like people were trying to take advantage. They were always trying to get something out of you. Well, invest in this or buy this. Like there was always scammy element, and I faced it and saw it many, many times. Even people who I thought believed were my friends. Whereas with Bitcoin, I never had anybody ask me for anything. In fact, it was the opposite. They were always so gracious with their knowledge, whether it would be this is how you need to self-custody. I wasn't self-custodying at that time. Or this is, I had friends teach me about mining, or so gracious with their knowledge. And so as my conviction grew, by the time end of 2022, starting 2023 rolled around, I was I'm ready to sell our home, sell our practice, sold our cars, sold most of our possessions. And we just bought Bitcoin and moved to Hawaii and retired. And so we just do just mission work, and we're able to just focus on our children and things we love to do. Yeah, but people absolutely, like friends and colleagues, thought we were absolutely insane. We have had a thriving practice, I mean, very successful, that we had built, and was still growing despite the numbers we were doing. So it seemed, I think the common question I would get would be, okay, you're doing this for Bitcoin, but why don't you keep, between my husband and I, we made 7 figures. So they said, well, why don't you just keep the practice?
Dr. Suzie Reilly to the Larpar Show, where we talk about what is money, what is coming, and how to protect your family. So Susie's a retired dentist who got into Bitcoin in 2018. She sold her fabulous practice and her home in Atlanta a few years ago, and is now currently doing mission work and helping to build a medical clinic in El Zonte in El Salvador. So, Suzie, how did you find Bitcoin, and how has it changed your life?
Well, thanks for having me, Lawrence. So originally I got into Bitcoin. It was just something my son had mentioned that I should get into. I wasn't interested. I was very much a traditional finance, corporate, yeah, commercial real estate, stocks, equities, those kind of things. But he was persistent enough, and I finally just started just casually, very, very small amounts buying. But I did do it regularly. The one nice thing about Bitcoin, even though I hadn't studied it or, but really knew nothing about it, I genuinely thought it was something on the dark web, that criminals used. But it was so easy to buy fortunately, I learned very early on, I could buy $5 at a time, $10 at a time, so it was just small amounts on my phone that, I didn't go, get my hair cut this month. I'll buy a little bit of Bitcoin. So by the time 2021 rolled around, I was at work one day working on a patient, and I looked up at the TV screen on the ceiling, and the news was talking about Bitcoin, and that Tesla and Elon Musk had just bought Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, wow. So as soon as I was done with the patient, I go back and open up my little Coin Mama account, and I had a significant amount in there that I wasn't expecting. And so at that point, it really piqued my curiosity and interest. Okay, so maybe this isn't some little, goofy thing like the Beanie Babies that I'm just doing on the side. And so I really started doing some homework, and very quickly decided that I was looking for the next Bitcoin, and went full shitcoin. So started buying altcoins, did very, very well for a while. And then it was fortunately Toxic Maxis on Twitter at the time that sort of shamed me into, you need to start studying. You're an idiot. It doesn't matter what you think you've made. You are a moron. And I'm prideful enough that made me read the Bitcoin Standard, and it just changed everything.
Very good. Very good. A lot of us went down that path as well into all the altcoins and all
Yes.
that, didn't it? Yeah, but I think that's a lot of people go down that journey. I think it's very, very rare that you just get into Bitcoin and you just stick with Bitcoin.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that if you don't study and if you don't read anything about Bitcoin and truly educate yourself, you believe that there's going to be the next Bitcoin, right? So I think that was in my head is okay, if Bitcoin's, at I think at the time, it was at 30 something thousand. I was like, okay, then I'm going to find the one that's $1 now and it's going to 30,000 because you just don't understand until you study. Nothing will give you conviction like studying Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah.
And yeah, because like and most people, even for myself, before I really understood or I understood what Bitcoin was, yeah, I didn't even know you could buy Satoshis. And when you
Yes.
compare the price of a Satoshi compared to one altcoin, you're paying $1, $5, $200 for one altcoin. And
Yes,
imagine how many Satoshis you can get for $1.
exactly. Yeah, I think it would help unit bias so much if we would speak in Satoshis more often for sure.
And it definitely changed things if the exchanges priced in Satoshis and people were buying
Absolutely.
Satoshis. They know what they're
Yes.
doing.
Yes, I mean, I think it'll happen. I don't think it'll be many cycles before we see that repricing, which I think would be a fantastic thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because I can see a world and not too far away that we're going to be going in and things will be priced in Satoshis.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I definitely see that in my lifetime, no problem. So, but more of my story. So after then, really starting to study Bitcoin and then meeting so many friends, plebs to influencers on Twitter who were so gracious with knowledge. I mean, that is something I loved about Bitcoiners is when I was active in altcoins. I mean, I thought I was an crypto savant because for a while in 21, there was nothing you could throw your money at that wasn't going up until it wasn't anymore. But always in the altcoin crypto space, I feel like people were trying to take advantage. They were always trying to get something out of you. Well, invest in this or buy this. Like there was always a scammy element, and I faced it and saw it many, many times. Even people who I thought believed were my friends. Whereas with Bitcoin, I never had anybody ask me for anything. In fact, it was the opposite. They were always so gracious with their knowledge, whether it would be this is how you need to self custody. I wasn't self custodying at that time, or this is, I had friends teach me about mining, or just so gracious with their knowledge. And so as my conviction grew, by the time end of 2022, starting 2023 rolled around, I was full, I'm ready to sell our home, sell our practice, sold our car, sold most of our possessions. And we did, we just bought Bitcoin and moved to Hawaii and retired. And so we just do just mission work and we're able to just focus on our children and things we love to do.
Yeah. And to be honest, a lot of people that would be looking at this maybe might say, "What? She sold her car, our house, she sold everything, more or less." But I understand where you come from, you know.
Oh,
Uh, I,
no,
I, I
people
I
thought
can
we
see
were
that.
insane. Yeah, but people absolutely, like friends and colleagues, thought we were absolutely insane. We have had a thriving practice, I mean, very successful that we had built and was still growing despite the numbers we were doing. So it seemed, I think the most common question I would get would be, okay, you're doing this for Bitcoin, but why don't you keep, between my husband and I, we made 7 figures. So they said, well, why don't you just keep the practice and just keep buying more Bitcoin with that? But I do think Bitcoin changes you. It's cliche, but I believe that. And what I realized is that we were trading our time for fiat rather than for what we really love to do. And so that is what I always say is that I Bitcoin gave me the perspective that I wanted to trade my time the way I wanted to, not just to maintain a certain lifestyle or, acquire more things.
Yeah. And it's true what you say that Bitcoin does change you. Anybody that comes in and they do their proper work on Bitcoin, it does change us and it does change our lives. Yeah, I've talked to so many
Yeah.
people now and all the stories that I hear, and people's lives have been completely changed for the better. And
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, the one thing I do tell people, because so many people, are like, oh, I want to be like you. I think what people don't understand is, yes, we've been able to retire, but we don't have the same kind of house or the same kind of car, or we definitely, our kind of consumerist lifestyle has changed very much, but we've chosen that. That's what we want, and we don't regret it. So I just think Bitcoin does shorten your time. It gives you a low time preference, and it really allows you to focus on what matters in your life, which is different for everybody. But for us, it was really family, and my parents are getting older, and my two younger kids are going to be out of the house in 4 or 5 years. And so I said, I just want to focus time on them instead of, we were on that hamster wheel of, always wanting a bigger house and more vacations and fancier cars and, jewelry and, all these things that just, what I realized looking back is that it just kept us enslaved longer.
yeah, and that's what it does. That's what the fiat system actually does to you. It wants you to
Yes.
keep on pushing for those material things. Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of, like more love and more caringness and more family time. That's what fiat does
And
to you. It just keeps on
freedom.
pushing you. And freedom, yeah.
And freedom of time is, I just think it's so valuable, and that we lose sight of it when we're trying to achieve.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think we'll be able to go back to that life that we had before. Yeah, we're moving
No,
forward to a better life and a better uh way of living. Yeah, even though we mightn't have
we
the big house and the fancy cars, but it's much better. It's much, much better.
100%. I think, both my husband and I would say we wouldn't trade back to our old lifestyle, even though we enjoyed our things, we really did, but we enjoy our freedom much more. I think the one thing the criticism I'll get often is, well, but all you did was gamble, that, you could lose everything. You're an idiot. You sold this practice and you could lose everything still, And I said, okay, sure. But if that's the case, it's not like we can't go back to practicing. So for us, it was the worst, it was worth the gamble. We can always open another practice if we want to. I certainly don't believe we'll ever have to, but to me, it was worthwhile.
Amazing, amazing. And how is Bitcoin adoption? You're in Hawaii, are you at the
Yes.
moment, yeah? So how is
Yeah.
it down there? What's going on? Did you had some bad fires last year, wasn't it, as well in Hawaii? Was it
Yeah.
anywhere near
In
yourself?
in Maui, so on another island, terrible, awful fires. People still haven't been able to rebuild. Many people will end up leaving, generational home, properties now because they can't afford to rebuild. So that absolute tragedy. I haven't seen it change though people's like political ideas. Despite that, it still seems to be the same. In terms of Bitcoin, there's a thriving Bitcoiner community on the island. A couple of guys have a group set up. There's some others working behind the scenes to get Bitcoin adoption in government. There's a coffee shop that was recently highlighted on the news here that accepts Bitcoin as payment. It's a Bitcoiner. So it's a growing, definitely a growing community. I think the Honolulu Bitcoin community does a great job and only wanting to grow. And for myself, it's interesting. My normie friends on the island, especially when Bitcoin breached 100, I'm starting to get, okay, I'm finally ready to learn. So I'm excited about being able to share knowledge with people who just really feel intimidated by Bitcoin but want to learn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've been watching recently Robert Kawasaki. Yeah.
Oh
Is
yeah.
he from Hawaii as well, is he? Or does he live down
Is he?
there or something?
No, I don't think he's on the island. He might have a home, but I don't think believe that he's based out of Hawaii.
Okay,
I
because
might be wrong, but
he's talked about it before, but he's been a big gold and silver guy for a long, long time, and now he's done his homework as well, and he's
yes.
talking about Bitcoin. And I think I recently seen a video of him there only last week, and he's saying he's actually getting rid of all his silver. He's
Oh,
getting rid of all his
interesting.
silver, yeah,
Well, he'll
and he's
just be a
buying
maxi
Bitcoin.
before we know it, hopefully.
Oh, I think he's getting there. He's getting there
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah. Well, I think eventually both anybody with any financial, um, education, I think if they really do their homework, they'll eventually get there. I do believe that.
Definitely, definitely. It's about doing their work. That's all. That's what it's about. That's what it's down to, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because we missed it. I missed it years ago, and it was $30. But
Yes.
it is what it
Oh,
is. Yeah.
ouch. Yes. Yeah. It is funny though how many people have that story, and I've asked it once on X. Is when did you first hear about? What's your story about first hearing about Bitcoin and ignoring it? We all have that story, right? It was before nobody jumped in the first time they heard about it.
Yeah. But the crazy thing about it is there was people beside me, literally beside me, my brother's younger brother, and he was buying it beside us. That's the whole thing.
Oh,
We were in the same room lots of times. Yeah.
yeah.
But they were messing around on the dark web and Silk Road and all that type of stuff, you know. So
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I've met a guy here in Hawaii locally who he used to mine Bitcoin and he had thousands and thousands. And yeah, he said when it went up to $10, he, sold it all for a nice profit, but it makes him throw up every time he thinks about it.
yeah, definitely. So that's what would happen to most people because the education wasn't there. The education really started coming in really in 2020. Yeah,
Yeah.
when people had time and people were at home and locked down
Yes,
to start really
absolutely.
seeing it and learning about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we got locked down fairly hard down here in Ireland, but it is what it is. It changed my life around.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome.
Definitely, yeah. So, regarding Bitcoin adoption in Hawaii, how's that going? And we can talk then about the mainland maybe as well then. What can you
Yes,
see in
of course.
your
So
area?
I really there's a guy locally. He works for another company, but very very passionate Bitcoiner, young, enthusiastic, and he really is working to push not only a Bitcoin reserve here in Hawaii, but then also corporate adoption. And so I really like. I think he's sharp enough that I imagine. That he's gonna his approach is interesting. So anyone can look him up, Aloha Bitcoin on X, and I think that I wouldn't be surprised in the next few years if we don't have a some kind of conference or bigger gathering here, an Aloha Bitcoin conference in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, you need to get up there and you need to start doing it. Hey, Susie,
Yeah,
there's a plan. There's a plan for you
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to come to Hawaii, right? So it's a
Yeah, that's
great
it. We'll come
destination
from
for a
Ireland.
conference. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And we have a conference here in Ireland as well, and it's been going for since 2020. I'm actually the co-founder of it, Bitcoin
Oh,
Ireland
very cool.
conference. Yeah, it's the biggest
Yeah.
Bitcoin conference in Ireland and the UK.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
When is
so
that held, Lawrence? When is that conference?
it's on the 25th of May on that weekend.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
so it's going again. This is going to be our fourth year running it, and
Yeah.
it's quite big. Like, yeah, it's bigger than we get over 500 people at it. We're going to try and
Oh,
push for about
that's
1,000
great.
people this year. So it's a big conference, and people come in
That's
for the
great.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and
Yeah.
it's all good. You know what I mean?
That's
Try and come
wonderful. Yeah,
over.
that's yeah. Well, my husband and I are going to Bedford in when is that? April, I think. So
All
for
right.
yeah, for cheat code, so Peter's conference. So but yeah, maybe we'll have to swing by Ireland. My husband would love to go just to golf. So but we could swing by.
I was actually meant to go to his conference, Peter's conference, but then something tragic happened over here with one
Oh
of my
no.
friends, and I had to
Yeah.
cancel it. So we were all
Oh
set to
no.
go over that time. but we just had to cancel it at the last minute.
Are you going to make it this year? Are you going to try to go?
Since you told me about it, I think I'm going to book it and head
I'm
over.
telling you,
April.
last year of all of the conferences last year, it was hands down, without a doubt, my favorite.
Yeah. And did you go
It
to
was
Madeira last year? Were you in Madeira?
I didn't, but I heard all of my friends who went said that's a wonderful conference.
Yeah, we
Did
went.
you go?
Yeah, we went.
Yeah.
And about 30 of us came from Ireland as well. Normally when we go, like a
Oh
big
wow.
group of us go, because we have a good community
Yeah.
over here, and I just put her out. And about
Yeah.
30 of us ended up going off to Madeira. We went for a week in the end. We just didn't go for a few days. We went for
Yeah.
a
It
week.
it looked phenomenal in every way. I would love to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're doing it every 4 years, but that'll be amazing, you know.
Yeah.
But we might see each other in Bedford in
Absolutely.
April.
Yes. I suggest going. It's different than any other conference I've been to. So it's yeah, I think it's really worthwhile.
Definitely. And so let's jump in there and let's talk about what's happening on the mainland. Yeah. Trump is
Yes.
in now. He's pro Bitcoin, you know. They were talking of Bitcoin strategic reserve, but there's a bit of a people influencing that now
Yeah.
to go to a crypto reserve,
Yes.
you know, which probably if they do push hard, you know, we can hear there's a lot of influence coming in there, yeah, from other
Yeah.
altcoins pushing in to try and get in there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like XRP has a much stronger influence on the administration than I ever would have imagined, considering their history and their support of, the opposing candidate. So we'll see. I just don't know how anyone who does any homework in the XRP could think that it's not a scam, basically. I mean, that's my feeling on it is, I just don't understand. But at the same time, I hopefully with Lummis and other, I think people who have been in this space a long time will smarter heads will prevail, and hopefully we'll get our Bitcoin only strategic reserve, which I think will be incredible.
Yeah, it will be amazing. All right, if
Yeah.
they can pull it off. But as we said,
Yes.
there is a lot of outside influence coming in now, and a lot of money being being used to lobby out there as
Yes.
well.
Well, it looks like the Trumps are very much I mean, for lack of a better word, shitcoiners, right? They seem to embrace that. So
Look at the Trump coin. Look what happened there.
yes. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
what was he
Yuck.
thinking even doing that though? Like, who even advised them to do that? Crazy.
Yeah,
People
but
must have lost a lot of money on that. Because what is it down to now? 20 or something like that, maybe 15.
unbelievable. But I mean, he made billions. So
Yeah,
I'm sure easy money. I think easy money like that is like a drug, and it's seductive. And I think even our president is not immune to that kind of easy money, no
yeah,
matter who gets hurt. So
yeah. And they probably weren't expecting it to go so big so quick as well. And so much
no.
liquidity to flow into it. Like 50 billion nearly came into it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah, I mean, I never would have expected anything like that.
Yeah, who did? I think everybody was
Yeah.
shocked, to be honest.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So going forward in America, what can you see happening going forward in 2025?
I certainly think that it's interesting to me to see that what are we sitting at right now? $105,000 Bitcoin, and the sentiment on X and among on Bitcoin seems to be so negative and down, and it just shocks me. It shocks me. I mean, to think that just 2 years ago that we didn't even imagine that it would be at 100,000 for the average person. And, yeah, we're just coolly sitting at 105, 106,000. I think this bull run is nowhere close to over. I think that by the end of this year, I think it will shock people and melt faces, and we're just the interest is going to keep growing. I think even in the absence of a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but I think if we have any kind of Bitcoin reserve, other nation states will follow. It looks like a lot of corporate corporations are following MicroStrategy. I don't see how it can be ignored at this point. And so I think we're going to see I think it's going to melt faces.
Yeah. And like, even if America doesn't create the Bitcoin strategic reserve, as you said, states are starting to implement their own uh, uh, local laws, aren't they, to start
Yes.
stacking Bitcoin. So, and like,
Yes.
you've got 50 odd states there. So if they all started buying Bitcoin, I think there's over 10 now that have applied for a strategic
Correct.
reserve themselves.
Correct.
So they're going to start anyway. And we've got nearly 200 countries in the world that are looking this way.
Yes.
We've got over 30,000 corporations looking at maybe 2 million Bitcoin on all the exchanges in the world.
Yes.
All the millionaires, all the billionaires. I think there's 2,600 billionaires in the world starting to move their head
Yeah.
around here now. They ain't
Yeah.
just...
Well, and it is so fascinating to see all of these, hedge fund guys and legacy finance, some of the, even sailors, some of the biggest, um, detractors of Bitcoin years ago are now, some of the biggest champions. So I think that everyone will eventually get Bitcoin at the price they deserve. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And when you look at the numbers as well, if they say there's like less than 2 million coins on all the exchanges in the world. Okay. And
Yes.
there's about 1,200 exchanges in the world, right? That are selling all types of coins and everything, right? So for any company, there can only be 4 companies or 4 organizations or 4 nation states that can ever have 400,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
4
Yeah. I mean,
or
it's
5.
crazy. I mean, you look at the math and it becomes staggering very quickly, right? Like you're just like supply and demand. I mean,
Yeah,
my children get it with their Pokemon cards. They understand it. So eventually, people, they have to understand what the value proposition is of Bitcoin.
and they're starting to learn. Everybody's starting to
Yes.
learn. Everybody
Yes.
is starting to learn slowly, but and it does take a bit of time. That's the thing. It takes a bit of time for it to really click in your head and to really understand it. Like, people might start buying it, yeah, but then after maybe a couple of months and after a year, they start seeing the value of what they bought, and they start reading more, and they start getting more into the community, and then it just clicks with people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then you realize there's nothing else you want to buy, because once you
They're
understand...
really, yeah. But I think, like, to what you said, we tend to look at Bitcoin at first through the lens of anything else we've invested in previously, whether it be real estate or, stocks and bonds or, commodities or gold and the more you study, you realize, no, it is different. This is limited, cap supply. It is different. That again, when it clicks, it's that slowly, then suddenly. It's just, you can't ignore what it can do.
Definitely, definitely. And the thing about it is, it's like the way I see it is myself. Just one of the ways I see it is, it's like the internet years ago, say 30 years ago. Okay, imagine our parents had an opportunity to buy a piece of the internet, because Bitcoin is a protocol, the same as the internet protocol.
Yes.
And look at all the things that were stacked on top of the internet, and all these layer 2s, layer 3s, and layer 4s that are on top of the internet. Yeah. And the World Wide Web. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's happening now in Bitcoin as well, with all these layers that are being built, like Lightning, yeah, is a layer 2, and there's other different applications coming out. And the value of
Yes.
all those companies and those corporations, when they become $100 million companies and then $1 billion companies, the value of those companies are going to organically go into the base layer, which is Bitcoin.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think the internet is probably one of the closest things I've heard, early internet, when comparing to Bitcoin. I think probably the one that I've heard that I'm like, yeah, I see it as the same, is when people say like oceanfront property. Bitcoin is sort of like oceanfront property, that it is, there is a limited supply. It is desirable, valuable, but of course it comes with a downside, the property taxes and having to care for it, and maintenance, and that taxes that you don't have with Bitcoin. But people can
Definitely.
easily see with oceanfront property, they're like, oh yeah, I understand what the value proposition is of that, why it continues to go up, why it is desirable. And I thought, oh yeah, and that's Bitcoin. It's a limited supply. It has properties that nothing else does.
Yeah, definitely. And as well, property rights as well. Yeah, with property rights.
Yes.
Now, and I know recently, and we can see what's going on around the world and the disruption that's going on around the world and everything that's happening around there. Like if there's a problem in your country and things start falling out of the sky, how are you going to start taking your investment properties with you? You don't.
Yes. No,
You can't.
you don't. Yeah, no, we know somebody who had purchased property in Nicaragua like 10 years ago, and they just had to abandon it. They weren't able, like, some war broke out, civil war around their property, and they just lost it. So
Yeah,
it's a great point. Yeah.
it happens. And it's happened over and over and over again. And history repeats
Yeah.
itself. That's what
Yes.
happens. You can
Yeah.
just
I
have a
mean,
change of government and
look
they change
what's
the
going on
laws.
in South Africa. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, so yeah, you're right. Nothing is true. You can't guarantee that anything is truly yours. You can with your Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, when you go down that rabbit hole that we were talking about before we started, yeah,
Yeah. Yes.
we actually don't own anything because we've registered everything.
Mm,
And when you register
yeah.
something, you give away ownership of it. So think about what
That's
you've
so
registered:
fascinating. Yeah. Everything.
your house, your car, your motorbike, your practice, your real
Yeah.
estate. Everything is registered. Most people
Yeah.
don't really know what's going on. That's how they can come and
Right.
seize everything that you have and take your car from outside your house and put a order on your property because you've
Yeah.
registered it.
Your bank account.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
It's
you
so true.
when you put your fiat currency into that bank account, we know now that you don't own that anymore.
True.
They own it.
Yeah. Well, I've told anybody, I mean, try and go and take out $100,000 out of your bank. You'll eventually get it out, but they don't make it easy. But it's, if you need, I think that's happening around the world where they really have made it much harder to take your own money out of the bank.
Yeah. And for years we didn't see it in the Western world, but now we're starting to see it.
Yes. Yes. I mean, even when we were moving to have to, change, we were changing banks, and they made it very difficult, very difficult.
Yeah,
Like, you would think getting a cashier's check should be the easiest thing in the world, but it actually was not.
definitely. Yeah. It's only when you go and start doing it, then you realize how difficult it is and what you really
Yes.
have. That's the thing. And a lot of people haven't
Yes.
really done that. People that we know have. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
we see it firsthand. Do you really
Well,
own that
until
money? Do you really own that pension? Do you
right.
really own this? Do you really
Well,
own
do you
that?
really own anything, like you said? But I think before you're faced with it, like, you do believe, yes, my money is sitting in the bank. Yes, if something happens to the bank, the federal government will bail me out. Yes, we just tend to be trusting, and I think once you start digging in a little bit, you realize that it is misplaced trust.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think of uh we know that well, we know that the money's changing sooner
Yeah.
rather than later, and they're talking
Yes.
about bringing in CBDCs. Now I know in the US they don't like that word. The administration doesn't like that. They call it a stable coin,
Yes.
but it's still programmable money. What's your thoughts on CBDCs and stable coins going forward, or programmable money? Let's just say.
I mean, obviously, I hate the idea, but personally, I believe in the U.S. It's going to be inevitable. Current administration seems to be absolutely against it, but I don't. I don't see any way that they can keep the printer on and keep the masses controlled financially without eventually going to a CBDC. That's another thing in my lifetime. I believe in the US we will see.
Yeah. Well, it's going to happen in Europe as well. Because was it last year they put in Fed now, didn't they? They put in Fed now
Yes,
last year on the back
yes,
end.
yes.
Last year they launched the digital euro on the back end here in Europe. I only heard there during the week that they're starting to launch the CBDC in November in Europe, gradually.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know it
So
was that close. Wow.
I think myself personally, that's just me personally from all the data that we're looking at and what I'm seeing, I think we're really going to be full on into CBDC by the end of 2026. That's what I think.
Wow, that early. I think so many things that we use now for convenience, whether it's Apple Pay or Venmo, PayPal, these things, I kind of think it is conditioning us to want a CBDC. I think they're going to convince us for convenience purposes. The average person on the street will think, "Oh, of course I want this." Well, who wants to use cash, and why would you? And it will be for surveillance and control.
Yeah. Well, they started conditioning us, I think, from 2020 when they started telling people that when we had the big C that cash is bad, isn't it?
Yes,
That's what they said. Don't
yes,
touch cash. Don't touch cash. Use
yes.
your cards. Use your cards. Yeah.
And in Ireland, do you see like we've started to see businesses here who don't accept cash? Have you seen that at all in Ireland?
Yeah, there is. Yeah. A lot of government
Yeah,
bodies as well. I went there recently to do something in a government. It was just like to pay for something and I had cash. They
yeah,
wouldn't accept it. I had to go back
yeah,
next week with I just didn't have my cards. I'd parked around the corner and everything. Yeah.
yeah.
And I had an appointment and I just had cash on me. And
And they would not take it.
they wouldn't take the cash. I said, what? Like you're
Well,
a government
I
organization and you're not taking
yeah,
cash.
I know it's not legal tender here, I guess. But same thing, all the airlines will no longer accept
Yeah,
it on board, So I do think it's conditioning us.
definitely it is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Well, sure. At least we're
But
prepared anyway.
yes, I hate the thought, but I don't see any way that it doesn't eventually happen.
Yeah. Like, because in the end of the day, the governments don't control the money. It's the bankers
Yeah.
that control the money and
Yes.
they're pushing for the
Yeah.
CBDCs and they want programmable money. So
Correct.
it's out, I
Correct.
think it's out of government hands. It's beyond them.
Yeah. But I think they're going to have it where people are clamoring for it. Like I've even heard it with like, rolling it out with UBI and, oh, wouldn't you prefer to get your money or your benefits or instantly with this stable coin or CBDC or, look how much easier you won't have to wait for your check. And so like, I think people will not only be conditioned to accept it, but they will actually push that they want it.
But yeah, I can see that. I can really see it. So they're gonna sell the benefits, not the
Yeah.
burdens. That's what
Yeah.
they're gonna do.
Well, I think with any restriction of freedom, how they sell it to us is through convenience. It's never through, that doing all of these things are, more fun or exciting. No, it's convenience and safety, right? That's how they sell it.
Yeah, safety. It's for your safety. It's for your
Yeah.
own
Yes.
safety. You should use this programmable money for your own safety. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Oh, but it'll be harder for people to steal, or I'm sure there'll be narratives that it will, it will be to make it easier to swallow, and that, yeah, there'll be people who want it for sure.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of videos from the European Central Bank already, the ECB, the European Central Bank, and they've got some
Yes.
lovely videos, some amazing videos that
Uh,
the ease of using this and it's safer and it's cleaner. Imagine that.
oh my goodness. Oh my God. Oh yeah. So those are the people I want to listen to. So
Yeah, yeah. So what else is happening, do you think, in 2025? What can you see happen in 2025 for Bitcoin?
like I said, I think that Bitcoin will continue to go up. I do think that we have some long-term hodlers now who are, finally selling some of their stack. I know some personally who've held on for 7, 8+ years who are selling small bits to enjoy life, which I'm all for. I do think we're not far off from being able to borrow against our Bitcoin so that we truly will never have to sell it. But um, as of now, I'm not someone who believes you should never sell. I haven't ever sold one sat. I've used sats for things to buy things, conference tickets or stuff, but I've never sold one. And I'm hoping to never. Fortunately, I think with all these ecosystems and lending, borrowing against our Bitcoin, hopefully in the next few years, we'll see truly great solutions for that we'll be able to do that. So I think that's one thing. I think
Do you
that
want
we'll
to touch on that a
continue to
little
see
bit?
people.
Do you want to touch on that a
Yes.
little bit? So what we can see happening in the future and how banks will allow us to borrow off it, or maybe even lodge it with them or something like that, and they'll pay us a
Yeah.
premium for that. Want to get into that
Yeah.
a little bit?
Yeah, so I think the only one I've seen, I know there are several companies doing it. Obviously, the biggest one is Coinbase has an offering now, but if you dig into it a little bit, it certainly doesn't seem like a solution that I think most Bitcoiners would do. You're trading it into, I think you're trading it into a stable coin, and then it's GBTC, or it's more complicated. So it's a taxable event from what I understand. So, but what I would love to see in the future is that, that you can just, whether ideally it would be we can still hold it and we can borrow. I think probably more commonly is that you will have to, let them book the Bitcoin and that you can borrow some percentage of that value, which would be ideal. I think if we could just draw a little bit to live on every year, I think most Bitcoiners would absolutely choose that solution.
Yeah. But as we said, it's still kind of early as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you look at the numbers of it, though, and you run the maths of it, if every single central bank wanted to have this on their balance sheet,
Yeah.
there's not that many Bitcoin when you think
Yeah.
about it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if corporations wanted to have it on their balance sheet as well and give people a dividend on it, there's not that many Bitcoin,
Right. Well, and every day we're seeing more and more companies, I think, put it on their balance sheet. And it's exciting to see the companies of what MicroStrategy is doing, and what is Dylan's company, the Japanese
Meta
company.
Planet.
Yeah, Meta Planet. Yeah, I mean, I think Mara's holding, it's exciting to see what they're doing, and I don't see how other corporations can ignore it forever when it's been such a successful strategy.
Have you seen the list of all the companies? I can share it with you now.
Yeah,
There's like nearly
I mean, it's
150
growing, and
companies.
I know it's unbelievable. Well, and did you see this morning that Tesla, that they're 26% of the profits that they just that of their fourth quarter, I think profits, 26% were from their Bitcoin holdings with the yeah. So I mean, I
Mental.
just thought that was incredible. Yeah. So it's exciting.
Yeah. SpaceX is holding it as well, because there's a
Yes.
treasury list that we can see who's holding it. And I think there's nearly 150 now public
I
companies.
didn't realize it was that much, that many, 150.
I'll share. Watch. Here, let me
Yeah, I
show
would
you
love to
something
see it.
here. Uh,
Yeah, I would have guessed it was half that.
there's a lot. So, okay, Bitcoin treasuries. They have MicroStrategy at the top. They're holding 471,000 Bitcoin. Then Mara's holding 44,000. Then Riot is holding 17,000. All these companies look 10,000, 10,000, 9,000, 3,000, 2,000.
Wow.
Where's Meta Planet? There's Meta Planet there. They're holding 1,762. I remember just
Incredible.
before Christmas, they only had 1,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and look at Semler there. That's fascinating.
Look at all
I
these
know
companies
Rumble
here.
has just purchased. I had no idea it was this many.
Yeah. You know, and the thing about it is, you're hearing about other altcoin groups and all saying that they're doing deals with banks and they're buying this, but there's no evidence there of anything that what they're
Yeah.
talking about. Here we can verify everything. This is verifiable.
Yeah. Oh, this is very cool.
This is the ETFs now. There's BlackRock iShares, 576,000 Bitcoin, Fidelity, 214,000. But look at all the ETFs, Susie, that are holding this.
Yeah.
People think it's only like
Unreal.
American ETFs. These are everywhere.
Wow.
You know, so between the ETFs alone, they're holding 1,326 Bitcoin. Right here. And then we've got smart contracts. They're holding Bitcoin as well. This wrapped BTC is holding 129,000 Bitcoin.
Wow.
And then we've got private companies. So the first ones are public companies. Now these are private companies. Block One, 164,000. Tether, 83,000. BitMEX, 52,000. Mount Gox. There's SpaceX, 8,000 Bitcoin. They're sitting on.
Wow.
Real Bedford, Peters,
Yes.
Football Club, 82 Bitcoin. Relay, 30 Bitcoin. You know, then we go to governments. 198,000 for United States, 190,000 for China. The UK, there's an interesting one. Ukraine, 46,000 Bitcoin.
Oh, I had no idea. That is interesting.
Bhutan, 11,000. El Salvador. Germany had a lump of it, but they sold it. 50,000.
Yes, I remember. But Russia holds none. That's interesting.
Yeah, but you can bet you can bet a few dollars that they are holding something.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting though. Yeah. I'll send you the link anyway. You can keep an eye on it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I've never seen that. And like I said, it's far more than I ever would have imagined. Look at that San Antonio chiropractic. Impressive. I'd like to know that chiropractor at the bottom of the private companies.
Oh yeah. Here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
They're holding what, 1,000? Is that?
Yes.
Yes, that's a lot. My God.
Yeah. You need to have that person on, that chiropractor on, Lauren.
There's some apps as well. That's 21 Bitcoin there, an app. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So
very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
There's big moves. There, you should have a look at this other one as well. See this? This is the ETFs in America.
Yeah.
What they're buying every day, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And on Tuesday.
Yeah, with all those BlackRock buys, every time they announce, it's always the I bet, but pretty impressive.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah.
I think Bitcoin's here to stay.
Yeah, I think, whenever you see things like that and they're talking about it on CNBC and Larry Fink is talking about it. And then I had the opportunity a couple of years ago when I went to BitBlock Boom to go see Riot and their whole mining facility. And I remember going in there and, seeing these thousands and thousands of miners. And I thought, Bitcoin is never, ever going away. Like it's just, it's such a huge, vast ecosystem and really like built out that you just realize that there's a lot more to it than, this web, magic internet money.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's in the future and it's going in for 50, 100, probably thousands of years out. That's, so let's see what happens with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Susie, if anybody wants to get in touch with you and they want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to get in contact with you? If they want to talk to you, if there's any dentists out there that'd like to connect with Susie, she's a former dentist. She can point you in the right direction about Bitcoin and maybe even help you, guide you.
Well,
are you training anybody? Are you doing anything like that?
I'm always talking about Bitcoin. I love orange pilling people. And then I do missions in El Zonte with my husband, dental missions. So if any dentists, would like to take part in that, we would love to have your help, especially surgeons. We could use you for extractions. But the best way to reach me is on X, actually. That's probably, I'm typically on it a lot, either, at my kids' sporting events or waiting for them at practice or things like that. So in my day. So that's the best way to reach me.
Okay, amazing. Okay, Susie, thanks for your time, and we'll swing back
You're so
around
welcome.
again in a couple of months. And thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lawrence. I appreciate it. I had a great time talking to you.
Thank you. And we might see each other in real life in person in April over at the event.
Yes, absolutely. You won't regret it.
Happy days.
Yes.